So now we have the data over here, which is a good thing. And right now we are in need of making a repository and actually save the thing. So right now, everything we did was covered by a functional test. So far we covered this whole file by a functional test because we cannot create a literal unit for this. You could create a unit test for this, but the only thing you would test is it doesn't handle a command and a comment absurd event, and doesn't it throw an error, because this function will later just return a void. It will not like return a response or anything. It will just return a void. So you cannot really unit test this, but the thing we are going to make now does actually come with unit testing. So that's what we're going to that is what we're going to do now. We're actually going to create some unit tests, and we do that by verifying the creation of it within the functional test. So we have a functional test right here. It actually works pretty good. It doesn't work anymore because this assertion fails, but this assertion is going away. We actually want to do something different right now, because we are going to make a repository, and the repository is going to be this get container. Get container, get. And now we're going to use a different namespace called test.app / I think infrastructure. And let's call it our comment repository. There we go. The repository, we will actually, this assert equals, and it's 1, and then $repository find all. So our repository is basically our connection to the database. Everything that a repository does, what the responsibility is for a repository, is nothing more than just save, delete, anything regarding a database update. Those functions are the responsibility of a repository. So by this, I have said, okay, I want you to use this repository, but this alone would be enough to actually create the repository. But we're going to do something else as well. We're actually going to make a new directory here for infrastructure. And we're going to make a new directory for repository. And in that, we are going to make a comment repository test. There we go. So this repository test extends a test case. Not a web test case, but just a test case, because this is not a functional test, this is a unit test. And the function of this test, the reason for this test, is to only test the repository. So everything else, everything that's not a value object, is going to get mocked. It's going to be like a fake object just for the purpose of testing this repository. So we're going to make a test right here. And our simple test is basically, let's say it saves a comment to the database. A test public function, it saves a comment. What I mean with repository in this context is, in domain-driven design, a repository has the responsibility. The repository is basically your connection in and out towards the database. That's not really that could. Basically, what I'm trying to tell is, if I want to save anything to my database regarding comments, then I will have to use this specific class through my whole application. is that the database itself will contain it to hold something before it's entered? No, it's basically the second one. It manages the objects. So in the repository itself, we will have like a dollar repository. We will have save, for example, or we have dollar repository delete, and we only care the classes that use this only care about save it or delete it or update it or whatever it, but they should not care about what else, you know. I want this repository to be like, I get the repository, I say save it, and then it's out of my picture for that file. So yeah, you could call it a gatekeeper. That's a nice thing to say. And every entity or aggregate root has their own repository. So because you might want to save comments in a MySQL database, but you might want to save caching in a Redis database caching mechanism. So, or you want to use a graph database for something else, or you want to use a second MySQL database for something else. So repositories are basically for entities to handle their state within the database. So for this test, we actually say it saves a comment to the database. So we have a comment, $comment is new comment. We made that, and we already create a? I don't think we created a. No, actually, I'm not allowed to make this function as well, so we're going to remove that. Do I don't, right? Hang on. Yeah, sorry. Go away. There we go. So new comment, and you know what? Actually, we might need to make more tests later on. So let's actually do this. Get comment, and we make a private function. Get comment. There we go. I made a mistake. Everyone can see it. There we go. This is the first time I've seen it today. It's the screen flashing on my end, your end, on Twitch's end. It's on my end. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's Ubuntu and OBS that messes up a couple of stuff. I have to check it out. But since it's my first stream of doing code within Ubuntu, I haven't encountered this before, so I'm sorry. I hope it doesn't bother you too much. So $comment is new comment, and it's flashed again. So since our object doesn't have getters and setters yet, I can do two things. I can either make the getters and setters because it's very logical for an entity to have those, but since there's no reason actually to use them yet because our serializer doesn't use them, I'm going to do it a little different, and I'm going to do it by reflection. And please forget this, okay? So you guys, this is not the best way to actually do this, in my opinion. The best way to do this is actually through getters and setters. But since we don't want to make our code dirty, we prefer to make our tests a bit more dirty. So what we're going to use is we're going to do this. I'm going to copy paste a file right here. Paste right here. And this file is called the private property manipulator. This is something I made earlier with a colleague of mine made earlier, actually. And what it does is it gives me free functions where I can actually manage a object without getters or setters. So it actually bypasses a fundamental feature in PHP, which is called public, private, and protected things. It bypasses that completely. But for our test, it's actually very handy because we don't need to write code just for our tests to work. So use the private property manipulator. There you go. And with this new comment, I want you to do this set by reflection. Because of the usage of private property manipulator, I can actually use this function within the private property manipulator as if it was my own. That's what we're basically doing right here. And we are going to set comment. We are going to set the comment property of the comment with the text, hey, I scree man. Oh, sorry, I wrote that totally wrong. I scree man 23. There we go. We are going to set your user ID to, let's say, blah, 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 blah. And we're going to set the topic ID to blah, 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 blah. Something like that. So, and then we return $comment, and it's all fine. So now, if this is the thing that's a bit dirty, because now if you take a look at comment, you will see that it actually has the property set, even though there are no getters and setters and everything is private, as you can see. So even though in this comment everything is private, we still managed to do that, which is basically very bad practice. But like I said, since our tests and our code is code, if we do not have a use case for a getter or a setter within the entity in our source, it's really unnecessary to make it for tests to work. And that's why we're not using it. All right. So back to my repository test. We get the comment, and we get the repository. Repository equals, and now we are going to do a new comment repository. After that, we currently don't have one yet, but what I want to do is I want to finish writing my test first before actually making it now, so you guys understand what I'm trying to do here. This assert equals $0 repository find all. After that, we do repository save the comment. And after that, we check this assert equals $1 repository find all. As you can see here, I think since I wrote it out, it's fairly easy to understand. This test will get a comment. It will get the comment repository. It checks if the repository first is empty. And if it's not empty, then the test fails. This assert equals is one of the test cases that we're actually testing. Then we save the comment through the repository. And after that, we actually check the repository if it actually has a comment in it. And after that, even, I'm going to make this test even better. After that, I want let's call this comment from repository equals this repository. Oh, sorry, $repository find, I believe. Does this work? Hang on. Oh, I haven't made the method yet, so it doesn't understand what I want to do. Find I think I'm out of my head. It's find by ID. And that's a good point because I forgot to add an ID to the comment itself. So that's a good point. So let's make it 1. And then I want this assert, assert equals dollar, let's say, hey, ice cream man, dollar comment from repository. Oh, sorry. This get by reflection. Dollar comment from repository comment. Okay, what I've done right now is after I checked if there is actually one new entity in the database where it wasn't here, after my save, I want also to check if the data in that comment is actually the correct data. So it actually stored the correct data. So I'm getting my comment from the database by ID 1. Then I'm going to check if the comment property of that comment is actually, hey, ice cream man 23, the thing that I just say it should be. And I'm going to do the same thing for the topic ID, and the user ID. So my user ID is actually this. And my topic ID is actually this. Right there. So this is going to fail majorly because we don't even have a repository. But this unit test actually tests the whole thing. So when we fix this test, we know, are we done with this unit? So we run it. It fails. It fails big time. And now we are going to make this comment repository working. So we create a infrastructure folder, and we make a filfish, and we make a repository folder. I'm a moron. One second. Delete this. Go away. I said a repository folder. And then we are actually making a comment repository. Ta-da! There it is. So this repository is a nice little repository, but the thing is, and this is where Solid comes back again. This is called interface segregation and dependency injection, and single repository and more. This repository is an implementation for something it's called Doctrine. We are going to use Doctrine in a minute to actually do our database work itself for us. We're not going to write queries of our own. We have a management tool called Doctrine that does it for us. However, if we decide later on that Doctrine isn't what we want and we want something different, it should be easy for us to actually change from Doctrine towards something else. So we do that by actually implementing what's called an interface. And the interface is part of our domain because we actually say the interface are the functions that a repository implementation needs to conform to in order to be a valid repository for me. So right now in the domain, we are going to create a repository folder. And we have here what's called a command repository interface. And this repository interface is not a class, it's an interface. And what this does is I want it to have a public function save. And it expects a comment with the name $comment. There we go. So this is all what it is for now, and it basically is actually it's actually saying if I implement this interface, this interface requires me that the implementation has a save method, and that's how we make it so that our code actually is never spaghettied. Like you're missing a function here, you're missing a function there. This interface actually demands that we have a save method. You will see it in a minute, because we are going to back to our infrastructure. We're going to implement the comment repository interface from our domain. And right as we do it, class must be declared abstract or implement method save. So immediately we get an error saying, dude, you need a save method or you're not conform my demandings. So when we make a public function save, watch this, it will still not be good enough, because the save method actually wants me to be compatible with the save method from the interface. As you can see, we need a comment. So I want this to be a comment from $comment. And now, as you can see, I get no errors anymore. So this is very good, because as long as our implementation conforms to the interface, our test will never fail. And we can, if I, for example, think MySQL isn't good enough anymore and I want to transfer to a graph database, I only have to create a repository with the functions defined from the interface, and I know all is good. It's very easy to change to a different party like that. It's just like this. We're very flexible this way. So now the fun starts, because I want Doctrine. And Doctrine is our database. So first of all, let's actually get a database. So in the Docker compose, we actually commented the database out because we didn't need it yet. Now we are actually in need of the database. So I'm telling Docker, dude, Docker, you need a MariaDB image for as called database. I want the MySQL root password for it to be root, and I want you to link my local port 3307 towards 3306. And 3306 on the container is actually the MySQL port on the container. So now if I rebuild my Docker container, which I'm going to do right now, the Docker container should be somewhere. Oh, it's in this tab. We're going away. Poof, there it is. Docker compose up man build. Now it's actually going to rebuild this container, and as you will see, it actually downloads MariaDB now as well, and actually creates a database for us within the container. As you can see, we have this working right now. There's also some comments for the database. I don't think I have SQL Pro here, so let me actually check if I can find SQL Pro. SQL Pro. I need a database management tool. Damn it. What's a database management tool? MySQL something. No, I don't need. Oh God, this is where my Ubuntu skills. I'm also very new to Ubuntu, so I'm using a Mac normally. So what's a good tool? Emma is a graphical toolkit for MySQL database developers and administrators. This is the successor of Yummy. No screenshots provided, but it gets 5 stars. So you know what? Let's just use Emma. I like Emma. Emma is a cool girl. Database host, local host. Cannot connect local host to the socket, blah, 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 blah. Let's actually create a new host. Can I modify connection? Let's go. So port is 3307 instead of 3306, and the password is root. Apply. Let's see if we can connect. Can't connect still. Why can I not connect? Emma, don't give up on me. You can do it, Emma. Emma. Emma worked. Emma is working. All right, guys, we got Emma. Anyway, we're going to create a new database. Let's call it comments. Oh, sorry. Comments with an S. Oops. Let's actually, it doesn't really matter how we call it, but let's just stick to conventions. Comments. All right. So the database is called comments, and if we open it, it doesn't absolutely do anything because we haven't stuffed into it yet. Our database is pretty much empty right now. So, but we have a database and Docker is working.